Two separate friends of mine sent me a link to this crypto article, which is weird for me because I'm kind of a recluse. I don't talk to that many people. And when they sent me this, my first reaction is, oh, this is nothing burger news. This is totally nothing. The US Clarity Act in government that just got passed, they officially recognized Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano as likely mature. Whatever that means. Again, totally arbitrary. But then I realized something. I realized that even though myself and a lot of real crypto guys, even though we don't care what the government thinks because we understand that the government does not understand what they're talking about, especially with crypto. I mean, they're always behind. And we'll get into why this is so ridiculous. But it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what most people think. And most people obey their government. Most people have this appeal to authority bias where they need a leader. They have a subservient mentality, so they look to somebody to tell them the rules. Government literally means mind control. So people think stuff matters that actually doesn't matter, and that's what matters. In this video, I'm going to talk about why there's actually a secret undiscovered cryptocurrency that's not Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. Can you guess what it is? That actually also has regulatory clarity that is made in the USA, that if you want your daddy government to approve of it, well, it seems like it's cleared in that department. So let's take a look at what the Clarity Act said about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. They called them likely mature for being fully decentralized, but also with a broad token distribution. Now, little does the government know that basically any holder in these large tokens that owns more than, 2 or 3% of the coins, they have the ability to crash and nuke the price to zero because there's simply not that much liquid in terms of the liquidity of a coin versus the total supply of a coin. So even in Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is not decentralized economically. It's decentralized technically. And governments are mixing these two. They're conflating the two. So yes, nobody can take down these networks because they're distributed systems, but also the fallacy of thinking these are likely mature because no single holder owns over 20%. Okay, well, what if somebody holds 10%? What if Charles Hoskinson holds 10%? Is that too much? Because with one click of a button, Charles could probably nuke the price and people wouldn't like that very much. Now, that doesn't actually matter. People think guy has lots of coins means centralized, when that's not what matters. It's can anybody shut this off? If guy can shut network off, centralized. If guy has more money than you, doesn't actually matter because Satoshi owns 1 million coins. The founder of all these, Vitalik, owns a bunch of coins. If he wanted to press that red button and give everybody a really bad day on the price chart, he could. All of these people could. Richard Hart, CZ from Binance. It has little to do with their actual maturity in terms of decentralization from a technical point of view. But people are celebrating. People are celebrating, and good for you guys. Congratulations. Your government approves of your tokens and calls them likely mature. Not necessarily the most confident sounding classification there, likely mature. And then it goes on to define mature blockchain systems, saying a blockchain is considered mature if no single person or group controls it. Again, this represents a huge conflation of what control means. Control coins or control the network. Bitcoin, Ethereum, you name it, most real blockchains don't have a single group that controls it. You can control a lot of nodes, but if there's other people that have nodes on a different part of the world that you don't know, ultimately they're decentralized enough so that no single group controls it. Now, almost every single blockchain has large holders, people with more money than you, whales, that could dump the price, but why don't they? Incentives are aligned such that nobody wants to stop the game. You have more of a financial incentive to hold the coins and watch them go up than you do to just dump and extract on every retail pleb. That's why the rich get richer, because they have a rich mindset. A poor person, a broke person with a broke mindset would look at that and say, oh, well, if I held 10% of the coins, I'd dump them all. Sure you would. That's why you don't have 10% of the coins. The wealthy realize one day maybe they can borrow against their value, or that there's more to gain in delaying gratification and making the pie bigger for everybody than there is in just nuking yourself and nuking the price of the coin that you own so much of to extract, what, a few $1 million. When people are already rich, they behave differently. But that's besides the point, because if you care about what the government thinks, guess what? Here's an undiscovered, undervalued cryptocurrency called Hex and PulseChain, where the founder was sued by the SEC and won. The SEC did not walk away. The founder defended himself in court and defeated the SEC. And his victory, Mr. Richard Hart, was based on, number one, failure to state a claim. So if everything that the SEC said and accused him of was true, it still wasn't enough to actually make any claims. Pretty embarrassing on the SEC's part. And two, lack of jurisdiction, meaning Richard Hart, the founder of Hex and PulseChain and PulseX, hasn't lived in the USA for over 10 years, so the SEC does not have jurisdiction. These are two pretty important points here that give legal clarity. As we see in Reuters here, a news article about the US judge dismissing the SEC lawsuit. Now, you might read a lot of misinformation out there about the SEC dismissing the case. The SEC did not dismiss anything. The SEC did not drop the case. They would have taken the case farther if they could, but they had nothing. because this case was bogus and overreaching and unfairly persecuted tons of people, myself included. But we won, so it's all good. The SEC drops all claims. And see, even this headline is a bit misleading because the SEC did not drop any claims. The SEC had their claims dismissed by a third-party judge. That's why we have checks and balances. Thank you, America, for the three-party system that still seems to be working. Somewhat, at least. If we read down here, we see U.S. District Judge Carol Bagley granted Richard Hart's motion to dismiss all the way back in February. And more recently, on July 7th, the window to possibly appeal the case closed. So, pretty clear and full victory. And we see here the implications are far-reaching. For Richard Hart, the vindication of his actions and validation of his approach gives other people, other entrepreneurs, and projects regulatory clarity. It sets precedent. It gives people confidence that they can actually push back against the SEC, that the SEC does overstep their bounds a lot of times. So a precedent for future legal battles. This is actually amazing case law. This is actually what matters more than whether or not some governor decides that Ethereum is likely mature versus Binance Smart Chain. Who cares what they think? They don't understand it. That was a trick question. A lot of you subconsciously do care what they think, which is why I'm telling you that PulseChain has regulatory clarity. If you like the government approving of stuff, well, they tried to fight PulseChain and lost. So the judge rejected the SEC's argument in full, ruling that they lacked jurisdiction, and also found no substantial connection to domestic securities transactions, stating that tokens were not sold on any U.S. exchanges, failed to demonstrate any investor communications that were misleading because the guy did what he said he was going to do. He built the thing that he said he was going to build. It might be different if he ran off with all the money, but he built the thing that people wanted to get built. So the summary here is that a legal victory for Richard Hart means that blockchain code is protected speech, which is huge for him. And with all the claims dismissed, Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX now carry a level of legal clarity that few other tokens enjoy. Actually, no other tokens, because no other tokens were ever sued directly by a three-letter agency as far as I know. They weren't named as defendants. And if you care about what other people think, which you do, the USA is now the crypto-friendly place to be under the Trump administration, or so they say, right? We had Crypto Week, we had the anti-CBDC bill passed, the Genius bill, the Clarity Act. Who decides what? Stablecoins, who can issue them? Making sure that we don't have a surveillance state, even though we already do. Now, my criticisms of these three major bills that passed this week in Crypto Week doesn't matter, because the public now thinks that the authorities, the US government, can tell you that crypto's okay. And guess what? These guys that made a website in Malaysia, CoinGecko, they also label PulseChain, Hex, and PulseX as being made in the USA. Now, do we care what they think? Of course we do, if it serves our purpose. I care what they think. This label is nice to know. Never mind the fact that it was just completely arbitrary by whoever's working at CoinGecko. And due to the fact that some other lovely community members in PulseChain decided to fill out a Google form and say, hey, we were made in the USA. Well, if the USA is going to be the crypto capital of the world, then being made in the USA is a good thing. And if it's not, well, we can always choose to ignore that piece of information, can't we? So, what's the summary here? Well, I thought this was nothing burger news at first. It did make me think that two people took the time out of their day to send this to me. Meaning two people actually think this matters, meaning these are real people in my life. And even though the government doesn't actually understand what's going on here, again, they think owning a lot of tokens is equivalent to being able to shut the network off. These are mutually exclusive. They're not the same at all. One single person can dump the coins and make the number go down, but one single person cannot push an off button on anything. Bitcoin, Ethereum, PulseChain. That's how real decentralized cryptocurrencies work, and I wouldn't be talking about them if they had a centralized off switch. So you might think that all this stuff matters. Just know that it actually doesn't, but know that the deeper meta is that enough people think that it does to make it a good talking point for the time being. So I'm heavily invested in PulseChain, the only cryptocurrency ecosystem with regulatory clarity and an SEC victory. And who knows? PulseChain's only 2 years old. Cardano, Ethereum, Bitcoin, these are like 7, 10, 15 years old. Maybe one day we'll see PulseChain have global recognition that Ethereum and Bitcoin does. Enjoy ETH at $3,600. Incredibly bullish on 100x or more potential for the entire ecosystem. It would take very little millions of dollars to pump all of these coins like PulseChain and PulseX and Hex parabolic. And I'm going to be here for that, positioned. The future is looking brighter. I'll see you guys on the next video. Like, subscribe, and share, and leave a comment. Let me know how you feel about crypto being accepted in the USA and about PulseChain being positioned with regulatory clarity, made in the USA, but also brand new with what you really care about, more price potential. Happy Friday. Enjoy your weekend.